By the way, you haven't seen what he looks like yet when he was... Oh, okay, I got to show you, Lulu.
No, I haven't.
I got to show you here.
Holy cow!
What's up, y'all? It's John Master Lee.
And Lulu.
All right, we got one hell of an interview today.
That's right.
So this is a 3-part series that I want to go over about this dude, Larry, who I recently got to know. And he's went on this most amazing weight loss journey. What I don't think people realize is that when you are obese, right? And I'm not just talking like fat, because I was fat as a kid. Now, this dude was big time big.
Right.
The amount of struggles that you have to go through and how it feels so lonely in many ways,
right.
and how it feels so isolating, and how to overcome that.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to this.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely fascinating. Larry, how you doing, my man?
Larry.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Man, first podcast of the year for us with a guest.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So we got connected because I've been looking to build up a whole new initiative that I've been talking about on YouTube this year. This new crew I'm putting together. It's going to be like Fast and Furious crew, man. And you had the most fascinating background. Like, you're an up-and-coming YouTuber. Through that effort of talking with him, he had a really fascinating story about like how he used to be overweight. And if you look at him now, right, like I thought he was called Big Larry because this dude is tall. He's like, what, you're 6
He looks
foot
so
something?
tall.
I'm 6'5". Yeah,
6'5".
Holy cow.
Yeah, this guy could have played for the NBA tall. He's so tall, you literally have to get on a ladder just to kick him in the nuts, right? He's that tall.
Yes.
Not even
my
joking.
God. I can't stand next to you, Larry. I would look like a dwarf.
Or you look like Prince. So, like, that's what I thought Big Larry meant. But then you talked about how you used to weigh a couple 100 pounds more. And that was fascinating to hear, because in our interaction, you come across like some dude who's never had that part of his life. Like, you're confident, you kind of have things figured out. Completely different person, huh?
Yeah, that's a different person. There's a lot of things coming out. One of the big things is you come out of your shell, because you're literally in a shell of fat. So you're able to work your way out of that, and you grow in confidence, and everything just gets a little better. It's not the magic pill. It doesn't fix problems, but everything gets a little bit easier, a little bit better when you can fix that problem.
That's interesting, because like, your weight loss journey was pretty sudden too. You mentioned that you went over and lost weight over a series of months, but you had been pretty much fat your whole life, it seems like, huh? Like, when did you start to realize that you were like more than even husky?
When I was about 8 years old, that's when I think it's for a lot of people. Whenever you hear that story from someone, it's usually right around 8 years old. They kind of just start putting weight on, and that was me. I was the chubby friend, and by the time I got to middle school, I was okay. Now I'm the fat friend. I wasn't just like a little chubby or a little husky. I was now the fat friend. I became the token fat guy of our group. So that's when it really started, and that's like a horrible time. Middle school, right? Because middle school kids are brutal. And then you're the fat kid, so they dump on you. Even if they don't mean to, they're gonna dump on you. Kids will just say whatever comes to their mind, and you're that thing, and they see you, bam, and it comes out.
So did Big Larry come from that like early childhood years, or did you have other nicknames per se when you were a kid that they gave you?
Or I was called Tote by my family on one side, because they'd tote me around with my overalls when I was little, when they were able to tote me around. That didn't last very long, I guess.
Well, that's cute. I mean, like, your friends or
my
people
friends,
in school.
Yeah, pretty fast it became Big Larry. And I think that was also kind of a way of owning it, right? That they could acknowledge I was fat, but they didn't call me Fat Larry. They called me Big Larry. And so I was able to kind of own that. But again, there's the downside of that too, is you don't see the problem until it's too late. I think it happens to a lot of people.
That's a very fascinating sort of dynamic then, right? Because I think what ends up happening, especially with big people who learn to develop confidence around, like, I'm just going to accept that I'm overweight. You develop names around that, like monikers that in many ways, like, you're embracing the fact that you're big. But the reality is, for you, it always felt like something that held you back.
Definitely. I think there's a movement for that. There are people who want to try to own it and then not change. And there are different body types, and there's only so far you should or can take something. But when you put on the blinders to it, and you're just ignoring it almost, and just accepting that reality, that's the problem. Like when it's a detriment to your health. And I was definitely down that path. Again, like we said, I was like 200 pounds heavier than I am now, easily, a little bit more than 200 pounds.
When you went to see the doctor, like as a kid, did the doctor give you warning signs of like, yeah, look, Larry, you gotta exercise here?
Yeah, I used to joke that I'd go in for a cold and I'd come out and they'd have with a new weight loss plan every time. I stub my toe and the doctor's like, I know you stubbed your toe, you broke your toe, but if you weren't so fat, it wouldn't hurt as much, I know you've got a cough,
Damn.
but if you weren't so fat, this cough would, not quite that way, but every
Right.
doctor, it's a real issue. I mean, I had hypertension when I was a kid. I was like 12 years old and diagnosed with high blood
goodness.
pressure.
Oh my gosh.
You're not supposed to do that, and I was always pre-diabetic, never diabetic, but pre-diabetic. Like, hey, your blood sugar is too high all the time, and the weight's too high. And what are we gonna do about this? And I feel bad for doctors when they have to broach that subject with a patient. Like, they look at their patient like, okay, now you know it, and I know it, but now we have to talk about it because it's a problem.
Right. Like, what are
And
you
that-
going to do as a patient? Like,
Yeah, exactly. What are we going to, and they always want to like, what are we going to do? But at the end of the day, it's like, what are you going to do, Larry? Because once you leave this office, you're dead to me, So what are you going to
Aw.
do to change this? And it's hard. It's really hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me. I failed at dieting for 20 plus years.
So you tried dieting as a kid then? You knew that you were fat, and I'm like, what did you do? Like, you just cut back on eating? Did you exercise? Did you?
Yeah, I did. I exercised. I was actually pretty active, like considering my size. Like, I was surprisingly nimble. I would play with my friends after school and do outdoor activities, but I also played video games and stuff, that didn't help. But the biggest problem was my diet. I didn't understand how diet worked. I didn't understand that food is fuel and stuff like that. I just ate what I wanted when I wanted it. I learned to cook because then I could cook what I want when I want it. And so I just got, well, it can be if you're doing it right.
right.
I wasn't doing it right. So, I just slowly put on the weight, and there are things like, we're not going to blame genetics, but I come from a family of heavier people. There's probably a little bit of nurture and nature in there. So you start putting the weight on, it starts building up. You get less active because it gets harder to be active. You get less outgoing because it gets harder to be outgoing. You get more
It's
in
just
your
a cycle
shell.
of kind of slowing down and being
it's that
more
vicious cycle, and you turn to food. Everything starts turning to food because it's the easy thing and it's the instant gratification. I can get that sweet, salty, fatty, whatever it is, that carb-loaded thing, whatever it is. I can just get it now, and I'll feel better, and I don't have to worry about the world.
I mean, you say nature versus nurture, and so help me understand. Like, when you were a kid, what was the typical kind of foods that you ate? Was it the kind of foods you ate, or did you just eat a hell of a lot of it? Because going back, you were saying by a teen you were already over 200 some pounds, huh?
Yeah. By the time I was in high school, I was over 200 pounds.
Okay,
For sure. Probably somewhere in middle school, over 200 pounds.
So did you eat a lot more than the average kid, or was it just junk food?
I think it was more what I ate. Well, I had parents that both worked, kind of latchkey kid, kind of, not too much. I was able to go out and do stuff with friends, but you come home and I fed myself. So whatever I could cook, whatever
microwavable.
Exactly, yeah. And so you're doing that, and you're doing a little bit more. I'm also a tall and big kid, so I ate a little bit more, and I think I just didn't know how to put it down. And I almost felt like I was shoveling food in there, but it was a combination of bad food and a little bit too much of it.
But did your parents eat like that too, though? I mean, is that how you kind of picked up on these kind of habits?
I would say that there is a combination. My parents weren't horrible. We didn't eat out. We didn't eat a lot of fast food growing up. We didn't have enough money to eat a lot of fast food, eat out too much. But that's probably part of it too, though. A poor diet, it's easier to eat healthier when you have more money. That's a true thing. But I think it was just kind of that my parents don't have the best diet. It's not a horrible diet, but not the best diet. So I think it's a bit of both, right? You learn from example. My dad's a heavy guy. He comes from a family of heavy people, and they all eat not so good. So I picked up those bad habits from them. Then I also had that kind of genetic component where I was never going to be like a skinny kid. I was never going to have a problem putting on weight. So, I was on that side, but I don't want to blame genetics because it's clearly you can battle against
change
it.
it, yeah.
You can change it, exactly. But it's easy to kind of get in that rut, and that's what I did.
So, I mean, as you were becoming more self-aware, and I mean, when you're a teenager, that's probably the most self-conscious you will be your whole life because,
it's brutal. Literally,
literally, you just want to fit in no matter what, and you realize you can't. Like, what was the sort of thinking that you had as a kid then that made you go like, and at this point, I'm just going to accept this is just who I am and never going to be able to change. Like, did you change the way you thought about like everything?
It's so gradual. I mean, gradual. It's hard to like pinpoint a time and a place when you're like, oh, I'm just going to think this way. But I feel like when I look back at it, I can see that I was kind of outgoing when I was younger. I just started pulling away. And there are definitely like, there's key moments. I remember getting picked on by a particular person, you know. I think the biggest thing for a 12-year-old boy is when you have boobs, you know. You're 12 years
man
old.
Boobs.
Yeah. You got your little man boobs or your little boy boobs or what you want to call them. And you got to go to the locker room and change for PE or gym or whatever.
Oh God, that was the worst.
Oh,
yeah,
my.
Changing in the gym.
it's hard for any
that.
kid. Yeah, exactly. It's hard for any normal kid to do, let alone a kid he's got 50, 60 pounds on everybody else, and it's all carried in his chest and his gut. He doesn't want to take his shirt off.
No, dude. I am almost 100% certain that when you're that age and you're chunky, because that was when I was chunky.
You were chunky too, right?
Yeah, I was definitely chunky. I was chunky enough that like my revenge of getting back at friends who call me chunky was to chase them down and sit on them, right? Like you just like self-fulfilling kind of shit, right? But the gym was the worst. Like I can't imagine most kids feeling that self-conscious, but like having boobs that stick out was for sure. Like I did everything I could to avoid going to the gym. I can't imagine you not feeling that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you totally you go that way. Then you start avoiding those situations, right? So you should probably be being more active, but now you're avoiding being active.
Right.
You know, I'm like, I even had friends that are still my friends to this day, actually, but they'd walk up to you and they'd kind of do a little boob flip from the bottom on you. You know, like, hey. And you're
damn.
like, really, dude?
Right, your boy boobs were bigger than mine then. If they're doing the under boob slap for you.
Oh, they totally were. Yeah. I mean, they're still there. They're just empty sacks now of skin, you know? But that's just one of those things that I grew up. I had a little man boob. I remember a specific time. I was at it's like a youth activity for like my local church, and there was an older guy, a group of older guys, and when you're younger, you look up to the older guys. And one of them, he totally did that to me in front of a whole group of people. He thought it was hilarious.
Oh, no.
A couple of people thought it was hilarious. It about killed me. I didn't break in the moment. I was able to hold it together.
You went with the
But
flow.
5 minutes later, I'm in the bathroom like crying, you know?
Oh my
This is
God,
what happens
dude.
when you're that age. And one of the leaders, spotted it, saw what happened, took care of it, nipped it in the bud kind of thing. But it was too late. I remember it now.
You
That
were
was over
already
20
embarrassed
years ago,
in front of people.
But you're about to make me cry, dude, hearing this story. That's just, that's the kind of trauma that.
It was brutal. It wasn't just that it was it wasn't just in front of the guys, it was all the guys, the older guys you look up to, and then there was all the girls there too, so it was a double whammy.
Oh my God.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, speaking about girls, like, did that affect the way you, like, interacted with girls?
Oh yeah, I didn't interact with girls.
Oh, you did?
Period.
You just avoided them.
I had a handful of, female friends, some of them I may have even had crushes on, but like, I didn't want to be that. I remember like specifically thinking, I don't want to be that guy that's crushing on girls that I don't have a chance with. So I just decided I'm just not going to worry about it. I just completely exercised myself from that side of being a teenager.
Did you feel like they ignored you, or did you deliberately like, no, I'm just going to like hold back from?
I deliberately held back. I'm sure. I actually, looking back, I know that I had opportunities, but they weren't everywhere. They were few and far between for my size. I wasn't horribly fat. I was 100 pounds heavier than all the other guys, but I was also tall. By the time I got to that point where I was really looking into girls, I was getting tall. I was over 6 foot.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's still, once I pulled away from that side, I just kind of figured, okay, this isn't going to happen for me. I'm going to have to do something in the future. It was always something in the future. When I get out of school, I'm going to do, whatever it was, or I'm going to turn this all around. And so I just I completely exercised myself from like the dating world for teenagers, and that just bled into the 20s because it didn't get any better. When did you
first start dating then?
I went on a few dates when I was in high school, more like things I was pressured into, as weird as that is to say. Like I had a friend like, dude, you got to ask this chick out. You have to do it, and so I would like work everything up. And that's what's funny about it is like, I never got turned down. I never had a girl like flat out say no to me. Doesn't mean that anything was going to go anywhere, but if I asked the girl out, I was a nice enough guy, and I guess not horrible looking. I don't know how to judge myself because what I saw was fat. Even if I wasn't horribly fat at times, that's what I saw. I mean, I look back at times when I thought I was horribly fat, and I actually wasn't as fat as I I would get to eventually. But that's where my mind was.
Yeah,
you know?
because when I look at you when you were in high school, your pictures, you sent some over. You know, you're kind of a chunky kid, but you know, you got a cute kind of like you got a, you know, I can see like girls like you, especially if you're tall, right? Girls love tall. A lot of that compensates. I mean, I'm short as F, so that there was never a shot in that scenario. But you already had in your mind that because I'm already thicker, you've already become self-conscious. You just feel like I never had a shot at this, huh?
Yeah. It's totally, and that's another thing, right? It's confidence, and you don't have it.
Yeah, I think confidence doesn't matter if you have bigger size, you're in a bigger size or smaller size. Confidence comes
confidence
within. It's very,
very fascinating sort of human dynamic, right? It's probably one of the things that will make you the most successful in the world, even though you really have everything mapped out against you in life, right? It's an uphill battle for everything. But it's also one of those things that could hold you back from everything in life, even though you're given so many opportunities to succeed. It's just one of those things that if you ever learn how to control it, it is the most powerful thing that you talk about a superpower. Right? I mean, I think like controlling your confidence is really probably the most underrated ability humans have as a superpower.
Right. Yeah. Well, you know that with my personal experience.
Yeah, like you've never really been fat by any kind of definition, but you have so many self-conscious issues about the way you look. But I think it's a whole nother thing with women. I think women are constantly reminded of like, you never look good enough. You got to look at these models kind of thing.
Yeah, I was blessed at least I was just a fat guy, you know? I couldn't imagine if I was a teenage girl and had that same problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's doubly so, you know? Yeah.
By the way, you haven't seen what he looks like yet when he was... Oh, okay, I got to show you.
No, I haven't.
I got to show you here. Because this is mind-blowing. Nothing like the way you would he comes across now. Yeah.
Holy cow! I know the numbers when you said your pounds because I work in healthcare industry, and I used to had a patient that was in around 500 or more.
500?
Oh yes.
I was on my way.
You were on your way, huh? What was you? Where were you at your heaviest?
479.
Oh, you were.
Wow.
So you might as well round that shit up to 500.
Gosh. I am
you were
so
at 500.
proud of you. Oh my God.
I don't think people just realize at 500 pounds how that looks and like how you carry that and everything compared to like what you look like now. Your before and after, that side by side.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
It might as well just be two different people.
At this point, I actually just got my new ID, and I had to wait, like an extra 6 months because of COVID. I finally wanted to take a picture at the DMV, and I had to wait forever to do it.
Oh, do people like look at your license and go like, "That's not you"?
Yeah. I went in there, and the lady at the desk is like, she's just like, "Is this the same person? Are you actually Larry?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's me. I just lost a lot of weight. I'm happy to be here. I want to take a picture."
Right.
It was a big deal, So it's crazy, and I have friends that haven't seen me for a long time. I actually went to a wedding recently for a buddy of mine, and all his friends and family hadn't seen me, and they kept thinking I was my brother. But I have a brother who's not quite as tall as me, but he was always the thin one. I was the big one, he was the thin one. So there's like a little comparison.
I mean, look at this caricature.
People kept calling me by his name. Yeah, that's my brother in that caricature.
That's your brother?
Yeah, so we went to Disneyland, and that's the guy who drew the picture of us, and it's like, oh my
gosh,
he captured
I don't know
fatness.
if I would ever be happy to pay $10, $5 even for this. I'm like, hell no, I'm not going to pay you money for this.
Oh my God.
It captured the moment. That's what we looked like standing next to each other. That's what my life was like with my brother for a long time.
So your brother was the skinny one. He never got big like you.
Not like me, no. I mean, he put on weight after he got married and had kids and got settled in his job.
Gained a little.
He gained a little. In fact, he actually lost weight after watching me lose weight. He asked me what I did, and he lost like the 20, 30 pounds he needed to lose. But he never got like I was.
So your weight gain, I mean, you say it's hereditary. Like, is there people like your dad or mom that's this overweight?
Yeah. Not my dad isn't. There's people on my dad's side that is. Basically, I've got a family of 6 growing up, right? I got 2 sisters, me, my brother, and my parents. And one sister and one brother, me, are built like my dad. We're square. We were square shaped, rounded squares. We were about as tall wide as we were tall. And then the other sister and my brother, they were skinny and thin rails like my mom was on her side. So it just kind of, it was almost like when you watch those cartoons as a kid and the kids, it's like two different dogs, but the kids are sure they're two different dogs and actually mixed breeds. You know what I'm trying to say? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was like that with us. Like my sister and I look just like my dad and his family, and my brother and my other sister look like my mom and her family. And that's where we just kind of split that way. So I was the heavy one. I have a sister. She was the heavy one. And there's the skinny sister and the skinny brother. And so it's just how it was. It didn't have to be that way, but that's what your mindset gets in. That's my role, so I'm going to fit into that role. That's the mold that was made for me, So that's where I went for whatever reason.
So, I mean, this must have had a huge psychological effect on you. I mean, honestly, you can barely tell now. Like I said, just talking with you for the last couple of weeks, you come across like someone who has it together. There's a confidence there now. But, I mean, you talked about also like being depressed as a kid and just being self-aware that, you're that big. I guess you really can't avoid it, right? I mean, did you ever get diagnosed for depression, or you just realize that?
I remember a specific point in my life. I was going to the doctor for a checkup, and the doctor started talking about antidepressants. And I just couldn't figure out why are we talking about antidepressants? It's because he saw it that I didn't see. He could see that I was depressed. I just didn't see it. Like, I was definitely self-aware of all the other problems. I didn't realize how much it was affecting me. And in fact, I didn't really realize it. I didn't really catch on to the depression. I definitely had those moments. I think everybody does, where you're just like, you're super low. You have those like moments when you're laying in bed, staring at the ceiling. It's night and you're like, nothing's going right in my life. And what's the point of it all? You get those moments. But
was that going through your head a lot all the time?
It was more than I thought it was, more than I realized. It wasn't until I was coming out of it. Once I started losing the weight, I'm like, man, how did I live like this for 20 plus years? How did I do this? You just you get caught in this. Again, it's a rut. You're literally living in this rut. I mean, I literally slept in a rut. When you're that big, you're laying in a bed, you got a divot. Every box spring you break, every spring in the mattress is all creaked down in the middle, and you just kind of sink in this middle spot, and that's where you're like you can end up there in your life as well.
Oh my God, what a metaphor, man.
Right.
And it really sucks. And you don't say, I think it's like that with anything. You're too close to the forest to see the trees. You don't realize how deep you are in, you don't realize how dark it really is. You just assume that it's weird. Like we were talking about this before we started, like about like people you don't realize everybody's going through the same problems you are. But you think that's just how the world is. So like I assumed the world was just like that. This is just life just kind of sucks a little bit. But I didn't realize there might be other people going through the same problem or similar problems to me. So like all my problems were uniquely my own in my mind, but the world sucks anyways. Yeah. So
that's interesting. I mean, you were, and I think this is such a big problem with people who go through like what you were with through, right? Which is that it's a really twisted form of loneliness where you feel like, well, I just got to deal with this. There's no one else I can turn to for help. You just think the world's like this too. You can't get out of it, not realize there's a whole like another side of life, but you suffer in silence because of it, because you just assume like that's the way the world is around you. It's
a weird thing because like you're not getting attention, but you don't want attention either. So it's like a combination of both. Like you need some attention, you need some help.
Right, because loneliness is like you need to find a way to surround yourself with people.
But you don't want it.
But you don't want it because you're afraid that, it makes you feel worse thinking about that self-consciousness, that in terms of like, are they going to, pick on me? Are they going to think of me this way type of thing?
Exactly. So, it's a cycle. Wow. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, the big question I think everyone has is, how in the world did you lose the weight? Like, what was the turning point?
That's right. I'm so excited.
That's the part that I want to get into, and we're gonna save that for our next episode, Lulu. Because I get a feeling it's going to be a big discussion, because that's what I like to get to the heart of, right?
That's right.
What is the secret to success?
The secret sauce.
What is the secret sauce? So maybe the answer is not eating the sauce to begin with anymore.
That's definitely part of it.
The secret sauce is no more sauce, Lulu. Right?
No, I love sauce. Oh my gosh, that's hard. But I have to tell you, Larry, I can see that very positive in you. And that is, I think, one of the secret why you succeed. That's just my opinion. And we will.
Well, here's my take, right? I think his positivity comes across because we're encouraging it in this scenario. But you know, we talked a little about this. Like the reason why we wanted to, like, I wanted to reach out to you, why I want to work with you on YouTube is because I still sense the big Larry in you. Like, I don't think that's ever going to go away. Like, you can never
No,
really
yeah.
shed.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
Yeah, you know, there's an old saying, like, you could take a girl out of a small town, but you can't take the small town out of a girl type of thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's that kind of thing. And I still think there's a little bit of reservation in you in terms of how you come across on YouTube and how you want to build up your career, your life moving forward. And I think part of it now is like, how do you surround yourself with other people who motivate you, inspire you? Because I think it sounds like a big part of how you were able to get out from weight loss was that journey. And
Yeah.
now, you know, the bigger question, the bigger opportunity is how can you apply that type of thinking to everything in your life, right? And yeah, because we don't know you from before, so we don't have this preconceived notion of like what you were before, how you're reserved. So you're able to like instantly jump into a like I can be a different person now. And the question is like, how do you now leverage it? How do you ride that going forward to be able to turn your life into like everything you dream of? So yeah, that's a part I want to dig into because I think you're a unique case study because you didn't do any of this with like pills, with surgery, with a weight loss TV show where there's coaches, nutritionists, and they paying you every freaking week. You did it by yourself.
I did all my
freaking
little
remarkable, man.
Yeah. That's insane.
It is pretty insane. Yeah.
I know how hard it is, but
Hey,
you're
thanks for sharing,
amazing.
and let's continue this, my man.
All right, let's do it.